for a second, maybe. Hello, everybody, and we want to welcome all of you guys back to another Saturday evening of Embracing Boundlessness. And so, as you may be familiar, we are going to continue the theme from last Saturday. And so, just in case you weren't around, what we chose to do last Saturday was because we have a group of explorers who've been into this for a while, most, or have really nice connections. And so what we decided to do was to utilize that fact and to have people share their, like some of the first openings they had to their own greater consciousness or to other aspects of consciousness that was sharing information with them, however they may present themselves, and maybe how that might have changed, how it may have grown, how it may have expanded, whatever, whatever it is that each individual had that kind of they recognized as something a little out of the ordinary that's aided them in their exploration of their existence. And so today, like I said, we're going to continue that, and the idea at the moment is to begin that with Wendy. And so, how you feeling, Wendy? You feeling ready down there?
Yeah, I'm feeling pretty good.
Okay. All right.
It's
Cool.
very interesting. As you started to ask a lot of these questions, a lot of things started floating in,
Yeah.
of remembering things. So as you are saying these things, and I think I had at a very young age, I had an awareness that I had that I didn't see in even adults, if that makes any sense. It was like I sensed that I had a sense of things and of aware of even things that were to come to pass, for example, things like that at a very
Mm. Well, Wendy, and you may be able to hear us, but all of a sudden we cannot hear you.
young
So,
age. My
oh, there
mom
we
had a
go.
very young.
Now we're good.
Sorry about.
That's okay.
I'm not even sure where you might have left off. I know our internet has been very weird.
You were talking about how at a young age you were noticing that you were had a sense of things that other people didn't have. So yeah, you can just continue from there.
Adults didn't seem to make much sense to me, even from the start. Even my mom would say to me, you're an old soul. I don't know how to answer your questions. You need to go to school but school, as many of us know, didn't answer any of those questions. I think I also had a sense that when I was getting to go into kindergarten, that I was sort of aware that I was here
Yeah, this may be a theme tonight. We'll see. There you go.
and I just got a feeling at a very young age that school was going to be something I had to follow into practice with like other humans, but it wasn't really something I was very excited to do. As I as I got older, well, my mother always thought I was kind of strange in a lot of ways. I became very interested in poetry and music at a very young age. Um, and I also had another family member who had channeled someone in our family who had transitioned. So that was something that really kind of opened my eyes. I also became interested in astrology and sun signs and how does that affect us, if you will. Um, I've always been interested in, not really interested in sci-fi, but I kind of, I watched Star Trek, I watched Star Wars, I watched Doctor Who. I always believed I could transcend time. Like for me, somehow I just believe that I could move through time. And I really couldn't connect with anybody in my family, like really at all, when it came to trying to explain the things that I was going through. Um, it just, you know what I mean? It was just another level. I became very quiet too, very quiet.
We should have a little mood music to play during these little mini freeze times. There we go.
I was always very, you know what? I'm going to try, I'll try turning off my video and see if that helps.
There you go.
I think it
Because
does.
sometimes I don't know, there's something with our internet
Yeah, we've
here.
got your picture still, so
Um,
The last thing you said was that you were quiet, and then
Yeah, I was a very quiet person. I would rather be out in nature, although I grew up where it was cold, north of Chicago. So I didn't really like the cold, but I really just always wanted to be outside as much as possible. Um, I sang in the choir from fourth grade until I graduated high school. Music was a very intense part of my spiritual growth. I liked writing poetry, music, lyrics, etc. I do not know how to write music or read music, but I could never even really connect this part of me with the partner that I had at the time either, which I think is important to mention to a lot of people because as we grow and change, I was with the same person for almost 45 years. And sometimes growth takes us in places and directions that we never ever could have imagined. And I couldn't have imagined, you know, changing that, but it just happened. And I will say that because of me following my highest excitement, when I
seems like the video is not necessarily the culprit. Usually they're pretty brief.
I let me just say I started speaking to the angels in candlelight very early in the because I know how frustrating it is to try to hear that on the other end.
We're fine.
So the real beginning of my spiritual journey was right before I found I wanted to speak with my angels. And I felt that there was something important I was supposed to do in my life. Like, you know how you guys, you know what I mean? Just something spiritual, maybe not important, but, and I couldn't figure out why I was always seeing 1111. And one day I looked it up and it said, "Oh, are you always seeing 1111? Maybe you're a light worker." And I just kind of burst into tears. I was like, wow, what's a light worker? You know, what is that? And it started a journey for me along with astrology. And I remember hearing Seth saying, "You create your own reality." That changed my life. That one sentence, that one sentence from Seth changed my life. You create your own reality. And I said, well, if that is so, I want to know how. How does that work? How do I do that? How does that work mechanically? How does that work cosmically? How is it that I can close my eyes and connect to something somewhere else? And I had been receiving information from my angels. As I mentioned, I was lighting a candle every morning to connect with them intentionally. And then I found 1111, and then I found Bashar. That changed everything for me. The minute I heard Bashar, my entire life changed for me. And I went on a journey that completely took me in a direction of people that channeled and that were speaking light language. And I started attending some hangouts. Now, by this time, I want to say I was already 50. I was retired by this time, by just circumstances. And there's a lot of past surgeries and things that came into play here. Also looking for physical healing. So I wanted to add that into that as well. So physical healing also brought me to this place. But when I found these people and I found channeling and I heard light languages, something happened to me. I would burst into tears. I didn't know why. I didn't understand how these languages could possibly make me feel the way I was feeling. I had never felt so close to what I would call source or God or my angels. I had never experienced anything like it. And I wanted to know more. And I wanted to share it. And I didn't tell my family. I did not tell my partner. And I started a YouTube channel in 2015, just speaking light languages in the forest.
That was such a natural pause.
Um, am I back? Am I
Yes,
here?
yes.
So I started my YouTube channel just speaking light language in the forest. And I had a dog at that time, so I would walk my dog with me. And my life changed. I started a YouTube channel, but I did not tell my family. I did not even tell my partner for a year. I was never on camera that whole year before I mentioned it to him. I just wasn't on camera. I was afraid. I just was afraid. I don't know how else to say it. I was afraid my family would find me. I was afraid of what I was doing because I didn't understand it. I couldn't explain it. Oh, thank you. That was very loud. Um, I couldn't explain it, and I didn't know how to explain it, so I just didn't. Um, and then finally, I guess I heard my guides saying to me, and now I will say I had been in these events with people online, on camera, so I wasn't afraid to be on camera with them. And so I thought, well, this is just silly, you know? And I heard my guides just say to me, um, it's time to be on camera. So I told my husband at the time, now my ex, that I had started a YouTube channel and the things that were happening to me, that I was, channeling things. I was having experiences that I couldn't understand or explain. I started speaking languages of like in one day. It was like from nothing to like 50 languages. Like it was so hard to explain, so hard to explain. And and there was no response really from him at all, other than like, well, I've heard of that. Um, and he said that his mother used to go to a seer, a psychic, but never once was interested in it or involved in any of the hangouts and I immediately started doing live events because I was so excited about this and about light language. I didn't want to do anything else. It was the only thing that I wanted to do, and I wanted to share it in such a big way. And so I started the channel, I started a website, I started doing live events with light languages and channeling and meeting people from all over the world. And yet I still was alone in it all, like all of it. I was alone, but with all these people. And I was having the best time in this world, and yet the worst time at home, if that makes any sense. So I was invited to to do a light language event in Florida. I lived in Tennessee at the time, by a woman I had never met, and that was the first time I had ever spoken light language in public with people in the room. And a lot of things transpired that weekend. One of which was I met Dave in person that weekend. And over the next couple of months, my entire life changed. And before I knew it, in about 3 months, I was living with Dave. I moved out of Tennessee with Dave into Florida, to a situation that was very, very strange to me. He was a caregiver at the time for his disabled grandson. And
whom you also met in Florida.
whom I also met in Florida, yes. And what I want to say to that too is the night that I saw them for the first time in person, I had a vision that we were a family, the three of us. And now, mind you, I had never met Dave before and had never had that, we didn't have that kind of a relationship at all. It wasn't like we had that relationship and then I met him. It wasn't like that at all. I just saw this vision and I thought, surely that must be a parallel reality. That's got to be just, I'm seeing a vision of another reality with us, and I just put it out of my mind. But yet through the weekend, nothing weird happened or anything, but something weird happened. It was like I can't even explain it. And I swear, like I said, how do I explain being with a person since I was 12? And being married 40 years, almost 40 years. And it, I can't. So when you say, how did it change my life? Like, it changed everything, like everything. And talk about a leap of faith and following your spirit guides and following the moment, being in the now. Oh my God. Like, so I always feel like that's where my story kind of started, was like when I found light language. Like, I feel like that's what began my whole journey. Everything else, of course, in my life led up to that. Of course, they're breadcrumbs. We're making it all up now, right? We're creating our story to support our story today. And I'm very aware of that. So for me, it finding these people and I started doing international hangouts where I was literally hosting hundreds of people in these hangouts. And it was just the absolute epitome of my excitement at the time. But I also understand from my ex-partner's point of view that if there was no interest in it, that I could see how that might make him feel, lonely, maybe not a part of it all. I understand that. But I have to say, I never felt something so, I don't even want to say strongly, because it was so easy to make the decision. And that was kind of scary. It was so easy to just know that this is where I had to go and to just give up everything. I was retired now. We were in our retirement home in Tennessee. That's where I was going to stay. pretty much the rest of my life as far as I was concerned. And my children are grown. And so, yeah, it was a really, I mean, for me, for most people who have these spiritual experiences, I'm always curious, how does it affect other people's relationships? And obviously, you guys found each other, I suppose, here. So, yeah. um, I don't know if that anybody has anything to say or has any questions or comments, but
Well, just because you opened the door, yeah, that was exactly, the way that Willow and I ran into each other. It's interesting because, I had been hanging out with the high vibe people for a while, quite a time. And then that group went through a big transition, and I chose to hang out. And I didn't really understand all of why. I knew part of why, but I didn't understand all of why. And then I hadn't been on for a couple weeks, and I came back, and there were new faces. One of them is the individual you're seeing sitting next to me here. But I didn't know anything about them, and then the next time, Willow said something, and when they said something, I had this huge download of all of their energy, and I went, "Wow, this is a very aware individual." And I really like their energy immensely. And uh, and so apparently the same thing was happening on the other end of things.
no, I did meet Dave on video probably a year prior to that. But he contacted me because he found me online from my light language channel because he was looking for healing for his grandson.
Yeah,
And isn't that interesting? So that's actually how we initially,
yeah,
we're in contact was by video.
yeah.
So I had seen him before in video, and then he started coming to my hangouts, the light language hangouts, and eventually he started speaking light language.
Oh, cool, nice. And I think I mean, all of us, being except for Willow, being well, even Willow has had these experiences, but being where we are, I'm just going to say it like this in our lives, we've all had probably multiple relationships, and so you move in and out of relationships, and sometimes it's only from this perspective. In other words, later on from life, and especially with an awareness that we now have, that you can look back and understand how some of that movement happened, why it happened, and how it facilitated you being where you are now. And so, yeah, so, that's it. Again, I think that, one of the things that I think all of us become increasingly attentive to is really paying attention to what it is that feels right for us to do, and not paying so much attention to the shoulds, should nots, all the rest of that stuff that is part of what culture has been. Because we learn to trust our own inner knowingness about things, and we make those choices out of that place. So yeah, that sounds pretty cool. And I'll back up a little bit here and see if anybody else has got any comments for Wendy after what she just shared.
Yeah, this is Bonnie. Do you still have your light language YouTube channel?
Oh yes I do. I don't I haven't shared as much recently as I have, but I have like over 2,000 videos, you guys. I was like crazy.
Wow.
Languages of
Languages of
lights.
lights, plural. I can put the
Yeah,
yeah, I can,
throw the link in the chat.
Yeah.
but yeah, I actually just celebrated 10 years on my YouTube channel. So I yeah, thank you. Yakira,
Cool.
thank you.
If no one else has got any comments, then I see in the chat that Vikira would like to share a little something, and so we'll head that direction. Why don't you go ahead, Vikira? And you're muted still, so you might
Yeah.
have to. There you
Okay.
go.
Hi. Wendy, I want to say I resonate with your childhood and the knowing. Um, so that inspired me to share. I remember when I was like 3 years old, I used to tell my father all the time that I wasn't from here. I was from a place far away. And at first he was just kind of thought it was cute. But and I had this ability that I just knew things about people. I didn't understand it as a child, but I could hear people's pain. I could see things in people's bodies, the things that were wrong. And I would tell my father that. And then he started getting a little bit more curious about, I don't even know if he was curious, more afraid of what was going on. And I didn't know it till I was older, but I used to wake up and I remember telling him dreams I had, where places I traveled at night. And I would describe cities and countries and give details of everything. And my youngest half sister said that my father told her that every time I tell him that, he'd go to the encyclopedias and try to and look up to see if it was really real places. And it used to scare him because they were all real countries and real places. But when I was 7, I was still telling people all the time that I was not from here. I was from a place far away. And he got really angry then, and he said, "You need to just stop this." He said, "People already think that you're really strange. You need to just stop. You're from Earth, okay? Just like understand that." So my world got very quiet. I got very quiet. I quit talking pretty much. But in my room, I always had friends that came and they'd come and play with me all the time. And I remember once trying to mention that I had friends, and my father said, "What'd I tell you?" So I just like was quiet then. And then as a teenager, I ran into people that were spiritually connected. So I had understanding more that I wasn't all that strange. And the other thing too, when I was about 8 or 9 years old, my step grandfather was an osteopath, and I think he could see or know that I was different. So I had told him I want to come learn what you do because everything he did was with his hands on people. And by the time I was 11, he would teach me things. And by the time I was 11, he'd say, "I'm sending my granddaughter in. She'll come in and see what's going on with you. And then she'll come out and tell me, and then we'll come in together." So, you're 11 years old, you think you're, all that in a bag of chips. And I'd go in there and, I'd do, put my hands on people, and then I'd come out and tell them what I saw. And he never said I was right or wrong. He just haw, and he said, "Okay, come on." And then we'd go in there and he'd say, "Oh," he said, "put your hand here, tell me what you're seeing." Because he knew I was seeing pictures. And I'd tell him. And so I got a lot of training that way and began to make me understand at least a little bit. But my real spiritual thing started. I got lost in the drugs from 13 to 29. And then in my 30s, I was diagnosed as being terminal by the doctors. And I just, I was like, okay, where are my friends now? Because I have 2 little boys. I have nobody to raise my children. I had divorced from my husband. And supernaturally, over about 10 years, for about 10 years, I walked around with a liver that was like, was completely like shoe leather. I was on the final stages of cirrhosis liver at 33 years old. And when they took my gallbladder out in 2005, it set off a whole process. But the doctor came in and he said, "I don't know how you're still alive." He said, "Your liver looks like a piece of shoe leather." And I said, "Well, I'm not supposed to go yet. That's all there is to it." And I was in liver failure 4 times, walked out the next day after they told me that I wasn't going to make it. And it was through just a lot of knowing things spiritually. And then in 2005, when was the last time I was in liver failure, is that I was like, it was like I was between 2 worlds, and I had so much peace. I have never felt peace like that since or before. But in that room, I saw so many beings that were all there taking care of me in ICU. And and they didn't all tell me their names, but it was like a gathering, and I knew it was not my time to leave. And one night in ICU, I heard horse hooves coming, and I opened my eyes, and I saw somebody coming in. I saw this white horse and just a lot of light around it. And I knew then that I was not, I was staying here. But and I knew that it was the Christ consciousness is what, is what I was told. And so that was an experience. But when I moved to Israel in 2009, I'd have to say that that was like the most spiritual awakening I had was in Israel. It was the first time that I met a couple and it was over at their house. But I used to have communication that started coming through from the Galactic Federation and different places. And so it's been a journey all the way along, just in different experiences, and not always understanding and having to go find somebody to explain things to me. For instance, I was on a bus in Israel, and you know how when you're focused on somebody and you know there's something you're supposed to see, and so I kept looking over at this person, trying not to stare, and all of a sudden it would go from being a human face into what looked like a reptilian face, and then back to a human face again. And I had several encounters like that, seeing that. And so I had to go get explanation of what I was seeing to make sure I wasn't like losing my mind. But yeah, so and then just in the last few years, I've just been finding more and more people have been coming into my atmosphere that have helped me to grow more and also understand more of my life. And oh, backing up, I forgot. There's one incident. I moved to South Lake Tahoe, California in 1979, and there I met all these other people that said that they weren't from here either. They were from a place far away. And so it was like a convention there during 1979, of just a lot of um, starseed and different people from different star systems. So that was an exciting time to be there. So that's just a kind of a journey that I've been through.
So what are you doing with it now? Kind of how are you interacting now, and how does it kind of play a part in your life at this time, do you think?
So in 1994, I left the whole business world and started helping women that have been through trauma. And so I've just I take each person individually, and I've called it intuitive counseling because I don't have counseling degrees. I don't have degrees. I've just let other like the one person, the one entity that comes the most is and I found out what the letters were when I was in Israel, but came to me as Yud Hey Wah, and it's the creator, and he would just guide me and tell me what I needed to do for each woman. And so that's what I still do. I do readings for people. I do, I do, I work with people through their trauma to take them into freedom. And so I
Cool.
have like workbooks and courses, but I tell people, this is just like the outline, but then I'll take you intuitively, through the process of healing. And I'm open to, I feel like I'm going through another transition now. This last year I mean, I've started authoring books and I've published books, which was just in this last year. I just would wake up with downloads from books and create them. And I don't know where, I know I'm still doing healing, but I don't know what that's going to look like in the future, but in the now, I've built a website and have some things on my website and just open to whatever path I'm supposed to take.
So as I suggested earlier with Wendy, it'd probably be nice if you could copy your website into the chats here,
Okay.
whether it's this time or the next time. That way people can find you, from here,
Okay.
and pass it on if they want to too, if that's good with you.
Thank you. That'd be wonderful. And my
Yeah.
books are on Amazon. If anybody's curious, they're under Yakira Mandy
Okay.
too.
Nice. Very nice.
Yeah. Thank you for letting me share. I appreciate it.
Oh yeah.
And it's great to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, we love having you. So anybody else, comments, anything anybody'd like to say?
Yeah, Yukira, that's a wonderful story. And I wanted to, make one other comment to Wendy too. This is kind of like a, spiritual group therapy. And I love everybody sharing all of their stories. And I think it's beautiful, and it doesn't make people feel so alone. And so thank you for sharing all that you share. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm thankful for the experience because it feels like now I'm part of a family. Before I was just kind of listening and everything, and now I
Yeah,
feel like part of a family, and that feels really great.
cool. It's so interesting, as I heard some of the things that you said, as well as some of the things that Wendy said earlier too, and I've heard some of those things from Arlie before also, but it reminds me so much about the conversations that Willow and I have had about the how the bond she had with nature and the connectiveness that she's been aware of all of her life, really, like you experienced. And then, but the difference was um, her mother, especially, but both her parents, but especially her mother, were very supportive of that awareness she had. She didn't have somebody who closed it down out of fear and all the rest of the stuff that you had to experience. So it's kind of nice, and I get to see it on my end. What that's like for an individual to be able to stay in that flow. It's nice that you got it back and it opened up for you, kind of like you never walked away from it. It's really cool.
Hmm.
And I think all of us, I think, but certainly I'm aware of other individuals like that who park it for a while, try to live a normal life and find out that it doesn't really work so hot
No.
and come back sometimes quite a while later, and pick it up again like they never left.
Hmm.
So it's really cool that that can happen like that.
I want to share one more thing. I have a grandson, and it was very interesting. He was about 4 years old, and I always felt a spiritual connection with him. And so we were sitting at the lake, and my son had gone off, and he looked at me. He says, "I know you see." He said, "I see too." And I was like, "What?" I said, "Explain that to me." And he said, "Grandma," he said, "do I really need to explain to you?" He said, "You see what I see." He said, "You see angels and you see different things." And so that
Yeah.
began a bond with us. And when this last time we were together, he's now turning 10, and we were sitting, and he started telling me about all the souls that he has, and how that sometimes his one soul doesn't come back, so another soul comes in, so he's not soulless. And we just went through this whole conversation. I said, "Well, have you ever told your mom about that?" He says, "Well, Grandma, you know my mom. She just thinks I'm just being silly." I said, "Have you told your dad?" He says, "You know your son. You think he's going to listen to me?" He says, he says, "You're the only one I can share this with that understands." So
Yeah.
I thought that was, and we have conversations whenever I'm up there seeing him. And
Great.
and he'll sit there and he go, "I don't feel like talking," or I'll call him on the phone. He'll say, "I don't feel like talking today." And I say, "Well, I miss you. I love you." He said, "Well, we talk all the time." He says, "Why do you have to think we need to talk on the phone?" I was like, "Okay."
Yeah, he's asking you to
No,
dial it up just a little bit, huh?
yes. So that's pretty,
That's
as
cool.
an amazing experience.
Yeah. I've had experiences where, my aunt had a daycare that she ran. And when I was still doing the chiropractic stuff, I would have my daughter, her and her mom would live distantly, and she'd come and stay with me for like a week at a time. And she was small, probably four or something like that. And so I'd bring her over to the daycare that my aunt had because it was only a couple blocks away from where my office was. And her mother lived with her. And so I got to know her mom. And then her mom started to have issues, and the doctors were saying that she was probably going to head towards leaving the planet relatively soon. And but she was still there with her mom. She wasn't in the hospital. She was in the house. And then one time, I was sitting with the three of them, and something happened where my aunt had to leave. And as soon as she was out of the room, her mother turned to me and looked me right in the eye. We had never talked about this kind of stuff, and said, "I need to ask you about what's going to happen when I leave." And
Wow.
then she started to ask me all sorts of stuff, and then that other part of me popped in, and I started sharing information with her. And then when her daughter came back, she quit, and
Wow.
that was the only time we talked about it. But I would have things like that happen, and I'm thinking a lot of you guys have probably had similar situations. But if I'm out in public and there's a young individual around, they can be less than a year or a year or two, three, four, whatever. And if they walk past me, they're like this,
Oh,
and
I've had
until
that
I look
happen.
at them, and then they look right in my eyes and they go, "Hi, we know each other," and I can feel them, and I go, "Yeah," and then I'll talk to them telepathically, and I'll find out like kind of where they are in their situation, with their family and with their feeling about physical reality. And sometimes I'll kind of console them about, it'll be okay, it's going to get better. Or other times they're just already comfortable with it, and I'm like, okay, cool. So yeah, those kind of things are very, very interesting. They're all cool.
And animals are another thing that's really interesting too. I was at a camp teaching, and had done some healing with a marriage couple, and then they brought me their little Shih Tzu, and they said, "Here, can you help our dog?" And I said, "Well, I've never had an experience with an animal," and they said, can you just see if you can help our dog?" I was like, okay, I'm not going to make any promises to you about it. And so I did. I worked with the dog and I got all this information. And so when the next day I gave back the dog and I told them, they asked me what I saw and I told them that I saw where the dog came from and other things. And they said that was exactly, what happened. And the next day they came to me and they said, "Look at our dog. It's calm." And so I was like, wow, there's also that connection with animals, that we can have, that telepathically, that they, deep conversations. And so that was exciting.
And to me, what's cool about that too is that, you also you brought a change about in the people as well. And the connection between people and their companion animals are so very immediate and powerful. And so I think that the animal, of course, was aware of what you were doing with them as well, even though maybe you weren't even fully aware of that. So those kind of things are
I
really, really
wasn't,
cool.
but that's good. Thank you for that point. That's good. Thank you.
Yeah. Any more comments for her before we move on to the next individual? Okay. So it could, let's see. I know that Heidi really didn't share last Saturday, really much, of course. And I want to make sure I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Is it Rainy or Rani?
My name is Rani.
Rani. Okay. Thank you. And of course, I've seen you on a number of forums, so I know you've been involved in this stuff for a long time. Arla, of course, has shared a little in this format and some others, but not necessarily last Saturday a lot. And like we said, Bonnie has shared here before, but not necessarily last Saturday. So, of the individuals I've mentioned, Dave actually, yes, as well. Just somebody do this if you feel like stepping forward in the moment. I'll see you because I'm looking at all you guys right now. So I'll tell you guys, okay, Dave, why don't you go ahead, Dave? Say a little something.
Say a little something.
I hopefully you could hear me good.
Yeah,
So
pretty good.
no one has really ever asked me to tell my story before,
There we
which
go.
is
Now you got the opportunity.
so I have the opportunity. Uh, I have sort of known my whole life that I had. Uh, I would say I didn't understand that I was different, but that I had some knowledge of psychic ability, connections. I was I'm Jewish, and I was raised mostly Orthodox. So, and I went to an Orthodox Hebrew school until high school. So every day I was involved with learning and talking about religion and God and angels and things like that. So all that was very normal to me. And I would say when I was 4 or 5, I literally, uh, I would sit in the closet, and my brother, who was 2 years younger than me, would sit behind me and pretend to fly around space. and imagine. But because my brother was with me, a lot of times I would verbalize, what we were doing, that we were traveling here and traveling there. And this is like, I was like 4 or 5 years old. I would be doing this. When I was, let me see, 70. So by the time I was 8, we moved into a new house, and I got to sort of pick the room that I was going to have. And I specifically picked the room that had a window and a way for me to climb out so I could climb down on the roof of the porch and get out to the yard, because I truly believed that at any point some UFO was going to come to pick me up, and I needed to be able to get out easily. So even at that time, I was thinking about these things. I sometime around then I learned about out of body experiences, meditation, astral travel, and I had been practicing these things, practicing breathing, practicing meditation, uh, and just because of my Jewish upbringing and going to temple all the time, I would be speaking, to God and angels and stuff. It was just very natural to me. I didn't think other people didn't do the same thing. I grew up in a house with kitties, and I would be the cats would take turns, often sleeping with me. So I would be laying in bed meditating, and the cat would be looking around, and I would just know he sees different spirits and entities and angels and whatever in the room with me. I would feel it, and I would just know that the kitty saw it also. So all these things were like completely normal to me. And one of the practices that I would do normally was sort of like a Reiki on myself. I would talk to my body. I would talk to the cells of my body. I would tell myself to heal. I would do all these things since I was a little kid, my whole life. As I got older, some of my friends were interested in psychic kind of things, and actually one of my friends' girlfriends at the time, I guess her family was involved with like doing psychic things and Ouija board kind of things. So all of that was very normal to me. I understood how it worked. I understood how to talk to people in that way. I sort of at that time knew how to be careful about what I asked for and what we asked about. Uh, so I had the I eventually married someone who had a daughter who was very psychic and had a lot of psychological issues because of it, and didn't like it. She saw dead people, she said, and I would talk to her all the time about it because I understood what it was, and she didn't really want to get any kind of help and assistance from it, and she eventually tried to take drugs, like medication drugs, to get away from feeling all those things. And it eventually killed her, uh, which was difficult. And I'm telling this part of the story because it leads to my awakening, even more so. My grandson, which was that person's son, he was in the army, was deployed, got out of the army, and shortly thereafter got into a really bad motorcycle accident, which essentially caused him to be a quadriplegic. And in the hospital, when this happened, I would be performing healing on him there would be, he was like, he could die any moment for like days. So there were literally like priests that came in to see him, and I was there, giving him like Reiki healing kind of stuff. And the priest would be like, it's a rainy day, and the sun would just come out as soon as the priest would come in and say, I could feel, God is with you here. So all of these things were sort of normal for me. And I, even before, because he was in a coma also, and so I telepathically and connected with him and just basically said, if you want to go, it's okay to go. If not, wake up so we know what to do. And he woke up shortly thereafter. And he says he remembers, being in more of a spirit state and deciding, knowing full well what it would be like coming back into his human body, but he remembers agreeing and wanting to come back and have that kind of life. So from that point on, it was a year before he was able to come home, and he ended up having to come home as a quadriplegic with a spinal cord injury. But my wife at that time and I took care of him full time. Shortly thereafter, his mother died, who was my friend who was psychic. And then probably about a year later, my wife got cancer and died very quickly. So it was me and my grandson left alone pretty much, and me trying to figure out how to take care of him. And he was having a lot of psychological issues, just dealing with everything. But it turns out, and I didn't even know this, but it turns out that he was also involved with spiritual practices and psychic kind of practices. And he had never really mentioned this to any of us. So we could just say he inherited that from his mom. And I know his mother's family had a little of that ability also. And so we started investigating how spiritually we could try to help him. And that led me to saying, this is a little above my knowledge. And we started looking for some psychics to talk to help him with this and to help us with this. And there's a whole story which I could tell another time about what happened with meeting some psychics. But eventually, a couple of psychics came to our house, and I just say psychics, but they were spiritual people. The one brought us crystals, and she handed me a crystal, and I put it in my hand, and everything just downloaded. Like all my knowledge, everything about everything just downloaded. And they were sitting there like, what just happened? I said, oh, hold on a minute. Let me take this in. I said, I didn't even know that you called it a download at that time. I said, I just had this big awakening. I just understood things from such a higher level. And from that point on, they sort of got scared and didn't want to have anything to do with us anymore. But at that point, I started looking up stuff on YouTube, and I was now more aware of all of this stuff. And of course, I've through my life, I've spoken to angels and sort of God and so forth. So that was not new to me. But I started connecting with different angels and guides more directly and practicing direct, mental communication with them. And I found on YouTube someone who was doing light language and light language activations and was listening to that. Never talked to anyone specifically, but just listening to things on YouTube. And things started happening, and activations started happening, and abilities started opening up. And at that point, I was looking for more people to help with my grandson, and me also, how I could help him. And I was familiar with light language, sort of spoke it privately a little bit, did it with my grandson, and he did not like doing it, but he did it from time to time. He would sort of connect and channel with like dragon energy and things like that, and it was uncomfortable for him. And he knew what was going on. He was participating in the journey with me. But that's sort of how it all started. And then I was looking through YouTube and I saw one of Wendy's videos, and literally like on the screen telepathically, like I just received, get in touch with her. And that's what I did. And we became, sort of friends by just chatting, and I participated in her online events. And I would say I was doing a lot of high vibrational things at the time, doing Reiki kind of things with my grandson to help him, talking with other people, helping other people, getting a little more involved with other spiritual people. But turns out Wendy had an event that was going to be near where I lived in Florida, and it was just such a coincidence.
What a bunch of weird.
A bunch of, like, the synchronicities were just unbelievable. And, I could probably talk an hour just about the things that led up to that and after that.
Crazy.
But taking care of a quadriplegic, I couldn't just go anywhere. And it just so happened that she was going to be at this event, which I could go to. I could take my grandson with me to the event and be able to meet Wendy and participate in this light language event, which I never did with anyone in person. And one thing led to another, and here we are together. And as it turns out, something I never thought possible at all, circumstances and synchronicities occurred that basically set Wendy and I up to leave Florida. And my grandson ended up going back to live at the VA. It wasn't something we had planned, but that's just how it worked out. I guess the help I was able to give him I was done with that, and he sort of understood that. And so now we're here
In a whole different reality.
A whole new reality. And we practice our spiritual things all day long with each other. So it is, it's
a way of life.
It's a way of life. Challenges for sure, but being able to talk with one another about these things, there's nothing we can't really say to one another. And a lot of times, I would say, I want to bashar her, or she wants to bashar me, and sometimes we don't really like it that much, but
we do it all the
we do it all the time, and we connect with our society counterparts all the time, and for some reason that energy seems to be prevalent in our experience. That those are the kinds of that's the kind of the information that likes to come through to us. But all throughout day, we get messages from whoever's excited to talk to us and share and give their 2 cents on whatever we happen to be doing. And I've had long conversations with my guides and whoever wants to have talk with me. And one of the most interesting things I would say for me is I'm told regularly that my thinking for myself, so to speak, is more valuable than getting advice from them and just doing it. So, I guess I have enough awareness of things. I have a connection to where when I need to know something, I get it pretty easily. What I want to do with it is up to me, but I am often told, don't ask us. It's more valuable if you decide for yourself what you want your reality to be and act upon it. And it's sometimes a little more difficult because I like to let somebody else tell me what to do when I'm not sure. But I can tell you, we've gotten, in our past experiences, there were points for sure that there was nothing there were no options left but just to follow our excitement and know that it would take us to wherever we were supposed to be. There was nothing left to do. We literally packed our bags, got in a car, and started driving. We had no place to go specifically. We had no place to live. At that point, I didn't really have a job, and it might not be the most optimum situation, but it's pretty darn good. It brought us to a property. We get to do what we want mostly. I mean, yes, I still have to work, but I also love my job. We thought a lot about the kind of job I would want to have, and this is
And he
about his
manifested
best.
it, yep.
And it happened.
Yes, he did.
So things that I thought could never happen because I'm a computer programmer. I'm a computer guy. I got a job when I was just starting college. I got hired, so I never finished. I don't have a degree in college, and the kind of job that I wanted required, masters and all kinds of other things. And I thought I could never get a job in that field. I don't have the paperwork, but it
didn't matter.
It didn't matter. It happened, and I got offered a position at a salary that was way higher than I had asked for. They wanted me bad, and the number was no coincidence. So that's sort of my story, and we try to do our best, and we try to share what we can and be part of these kinds of communities. And it's exciting to us to do these kinds of things and to help others and help in the awakening process of everyone. And of course also the idea of open contact and hybrid children and all of that, it resonates so greatly with both of us. So it's
well, and I've had my own experiences with that too, the whole hybrid children thing, but the sharing, that's what I always remember from the old Bashar videos was sharing.
Yep.
It was always about the sharing.
Yep.
So thank you for allowing the sharing.
Yes. Thank you.
I think that,
Any questions? I'll be glad to answer.
and again, that's, when Willow and I were talking about what we've done tonight and what we did Saturday, again, and you guys, I know all realize it yourselves even before we did it, but as we're doing it, maybe even as a little underline, but it's such a powerful thing to do, to have people who've had the experiences that we've all had to share those experiences, and because really, I just put this out there. Yeah, I mean, the video, and there's no way that we are going to know who's going to watch this. But more than likely, people are going to run into this who have experiences that are similar to someone's, and it's going to give them the courage to explore themselves in a way that maybe they were a little reticent to. Whatever it might happen to be, they'll maybe feel like they're part of something that they don't understand. Who knows what it might do, besides opening doors just amongst the people who are sitting here, and listening. So yeah,
I
I
would
think
like
it's
to
just,
I would like to give a couple specific examples, which
I need to go.
but I'll be quick.
go ahead.
Just some specific examples of things that had happened. So as a programmer, being connected and being able to communicate pretty freely when I'm connected. One of the exercises that I was offered was to allow the channeled information to show me what to do in the programming. And so I want to give this example where I was sitting in front of my computer. I had this, million line software program, and I had to figure out where to make the code changes and whatever. And if you could just imagine being in a sort of a channeling state and allowing the channeling to control my hand and control the mouse and to scroll, and believe it or not, it took me right to the place that I wanted. I disconnected my brain and allowed it to happen. It took me right to the place I needed to make the programming changes, communicated what to do, and it worked. That's one example. So, and I think that it's sort of important to share these examples as real life things that can happen if you're open to it. I used to drive around and basically say, tell me where to go. And even to the point of sort of allowing them to drive, control, let them move my hands on the steering wheel. And surprisingly, it works most of the time without incident. One time I remember they wanted me to take an exit on the highway. I'm like, I'm not doing that. Forget it. I know it's going to be like an extra, hour to get home. I didn't want to do that. We're in Florida traffic. So I wasn't open to that, but usually I am. And oftentimes it would be funny because it would, I would make a left when I never would have made a left. And we would drive past somebody that, for whatever reason, and we were in this high vibration, because both my grandson and I usually were together doing this. And we would pass by somebody who we could tell we needed to drive by right at that time. You could, maybe they were having an argument in the car, or maybe there were some other issues. Sometimes it would take us past accidents. But it's pretty interesting that these things would happen if you are open to them and allow them in just your daily life. And I could go on for hours talking about stuff, but
Yeah,
thank you for letting me
it's
share.
really cool. And it reminds me when I was early into computers, how when you're first into computers, to me anyway, for me, you always have this little bit of anxiety about clicking on the wrong place. And then am I going to get lost in there? What's going to go on? And then what I started to realize is that if I just did what you did, it would show me exactly what I had to do. Okay, click here, now click here, go up there, scroll to this, do that, and I would do it, and all the things I needed to do were fine. And so it gave me this confidence of being able to sit in front of a computer when I was learning computers and do the stuff I wanted to do. And then to an even greater degree, when I was doing the chiropractic stuff, and I, in a very short period of time, left behind the traditional stuff and embraced all of this. And it was all that. It was all an awareness about what to do with this person and why, and how long they should do whatever, So yeah, it's just so cool. And little things like this thing popped into my mind. When I was early in practice, uh, um, at the time, there were no PPOs. And then PPOs came on board, right? And in California and Minnesota were the two states that really embraced PPOs strongly. And so it changed the way that people could come and see me as a new chiropractor. I was only in practice for a couple of years, I had to be part of these insurance plans. I was part of nobody's insurance plan. And so I had to figure out what I wanted to do. And so all of that stuff, well, I was a really good radiologist when I was in school. And so they had, in chiropractic, you can do all sorts of things just like you can do in medicine. Radiology is one of them. And so I called the guy who headed up the program, and he was well known in the country, actually. And he goes, "Yeah, Chuck, we'd love to have you." And so at the same time, I had been dating somebody, and I was living with my brother and a buddy of ours, and we were deciding to get a place together. And so we were looking around the hometown, the town I'm in, Duluth, for a place to live, right? And tons of people were looking for apartments. I mean, every place you go, you had to pick a time that you wanted to come and see the apartment. Everywhere, even the dumps were like this. Every place. And so we ran into this. We ended up at this brownstone, and there were 4 units in it, and this really nice old couple owned it. And I connected really well. I think just the woman was there at the time. And I was kind of telling her about my life, and she goes, she says, "I really like you guys." And she goes, "I know you're going to get that radiology position." She says, "So I'm not going to give you the apartment because you're only going to be here a few months and you're going to leave, right?" And I'm going, "Well, I understand that, So we started looking around again, right? And it had been like 2 weeks. And we were looking all over the place. And it was the same story. People lined up to see regardless of what the apartment was. And so then all of a sudden my intuition says, "Why don't you look in the paper?" And so I look in the paper and hear that apartment and it was a nice apartment. It was wood floors, a fireplace. It was a very nice place. And so it was still there. And I'm going, how in this kind of a climate with all these people looking for apartments, can this apartment possibly still be there? And so I said, "I'm just going to call her." And so I called her and she goes, "Do you still want it?" And I said, "Yeah." She goes, "It's yours. You're the only person that came to look at this apartment." I mean, seriously, we had been to like 8, 9, 10 other places, and even the dumps, there were people lined up there before us and there after us, and no one had gone to look at this place. So, and then I was in the place for a while and I loved the place. And actually, I didn't end up doing the radiology thing. I actually, they didn't have a position for the first time ever because their funding wasn't there. And then I hurt my back. And I ended up seeing a guy who did applied kinesiology, which I had no idea what it was before I saw him. And that led me on this journey. So, yeah. So it was very cool. So, guys, I know Arla can talk a bunch more. I know we can get more out of Dave. I'm thinking Ronnie has some things that they can share. I'm thinking that Willow has some things that they could share. And Christine, I'm feeling, has got some things they would like to add to the stuff that they've already added. So I'm feeling, let's do this one more time next Saturday. What do you guys think? Just do this if you think it's a good idea. Yeah? Okay. Yeah, me too. I think it's a good idea. So next Saturday, and if you want to tell friends, if you think you got somebody who's got some cool things to share, let's do that. And oh, I forgot Heidi. Heidi hasn't had a chance to share either. So go ahead, Ronnie.
Yeah. I live in Japan, and sometimes I always want to be there online, but sometimes I forget what time it is. But I'm very happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, yes.
Next week.
Love having you. Like I said, I've seen your name in lots of forums over the years. And so, when you popped in, I know you've explored for a while. So, but yeah, so we'll do that. So again, it's 6 Central Time. Next Saturday, we'll do the same thing. And if somebody really feels like they want to lead things off when we first get started, just let us know and we'll start in that new direction. Otherwise, we'll just do like we did tonight. We'll figure it out on the fly. Okay. But
Bye.
this felt great, guys. It felt really, really, really good. Thanks everybody who shared. We really appreciate it. And I think really, I think that all of us get so much out of interacting with each other when we do this. And whoever's going to watch this, this is going to really have a nice effect on anybody who pays attention to these videos when they go out. So I really appreciate it, and I know they will as well. So guys, have a fantastic night, and we'll see how you guys. If there's anything someone would like to say before we tie up, please go ahead. Otherwise, we'll see you guys next Saturday. Go ahead.
Bye.
I was gonna say I really enjoyed everybody's stories. Just one more quick one that was something that happened that I just wanted to share
Go for it.
is I really wanted to see angels. I wanted to see them like fully and be careful where you at when you asking for this to be specific, not to be driving when it happens. Because I was going down the freeway and all of a sudden in my rearview mirror I could just see like this bright light. And I'm trying to drive and trying to see what's in my back seat. And all I saw was what looked like two legs that went above my roof of my car. And it was like, I was like, wow, I don't have to worry about being on the road anymore. It's like I got this big old angel that's with me. I never seen anything so big. And then I was driving to New Mexico and I got to where I was going to be on a two-lane desert highway at about 11 o'clock at night. And so I was like asking, should I go or should I stay? And I heard go. And I got on the road and all of a sudden this car came out of nowhere. It was like just kept really getting close to my back bumper. And I just said, okay, if this person means me any harm, can you make them go away? And all of a sudden they slammed on their brakes, turned around and went flying back the other way. And I said, that must be my angel they were able to see. So it was a really exciting time.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Nice. Well, once again, guys, it was great. We'll see you all again next Saturday, and hope you have a fantastic week. Take care.
Bye.